right now. Hello, everybody. I think we have some people waiting already. So welcome to our Lumiar online seminar series. We've been discussing education and challenges. And just turning off the sound here. Okay. So we've been discussing education challenges and possibilities during this quarantine. And for today, we are discussing the international experiences of educating through the COVID. And our guests are Dr. Fran, Manjari from India, Liz from Brazil. So I invite Dr. Fran to present everybody. I think here we can see everybody. Hello.
Hello. Hi, Victor. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Thank you. So today we're really lucky that we have a conversation across continents taking place. So as Victor said, this is our live to discuss the international experience. And it's one of a series of online seminars that Lumiar Education are hosting at the moment. So I'm delighted to introduce educators from Brazil today and India, and I'm obviously in the UK. So our conversation today is really trying to unpick the lived experience, firstly for children, secondly for educators, and what that's really felt like during COVID-19. So that's the aim of our conversation. If you have questions that come up, please do type them because we can see the questions and read them out. My name is Fran Wilby, as Victor said. My role with Lumiar Education is really to develop and support international schools that may be using, exploring and piloting Lumiar's methodology and approach. So currently we have schools in Nigeria, in Hungary, in India, obviously, and we've got Manjari with us today, in the UK, and also the heart of Lumiar is in Brazil. But my role also is as a governor at Lumiar Stoford, which is the first Lumiar in the UK. And so as we dip in and out of the conversation, I'll be listening to the experience in India and Brazil, and also sharing what's happening on the ground for our school in the UK as well. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome our guests. I'm going to go across to India now and welcome Manjari Sheel. Manjari is Programme Manager for the middle school at the Vijwajwat group of schools, and she is a leader in innovation at her school. She has been a teacher for many years, designing tech platforms and also game-based solutions for delivering maths and English across age groups. Her current focus is on increasing integration across curriculum and embedding skills throughout. And Manjari is leading a pilot at the moment, working with Lumiar Education, exploring the possibilities of project-based learning with her middle years group. So good evening to Manjari. It's evening time over with you. Good evening and welcome, Manjari.
Hi, everybody. Hi. I hope everybody joining us today is keeping safe.
Thank you, Manjari. And now I'm going to go across the globe to Brazil now and welcome Liz, a colleague of mine. I know across the globe to welcome Liz Matos. So Liz is based at Lumiar International in Santo Antonio de Pinhal as a tutor to a multi-age group of children between the ages of 2 and 5 and 6 years old. And she's also part of the school's management team. Liz also supports Lumiar Education, working on pedagogical support and assessment. Liz is passionate about life and learning with a background as a biologist with a master's degree in phytochemistry as well as pedagogy. And she has a love of plants and the natural world, as well as a love of culture, history and visual arts. We're very lucky to welcome you, Liz. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Fran. I'm so pleased to be here, Manjari. Very nice meeting you. Thank you so much. And let's talk about education today. Bring up your questions, everybody. Thank you.
So, as Lee said, our first question is really going to focus on the children's experience. So I think there's been a lot of themes that are coming out across platforms discussing education around the kind of wider impacts of COVID-19. But sometimes what we're missing is really that lived experience. How are educators coping? What are they doing on the ground? Is it similar in most countries? Is it very different? So this is really where we want to begin the conversation. So firstly, I'm going to hand over to Lise. And the first question, Lisa, I think is really worth us digging down into is really, how are the children engaging at your school during quarantine? Lise, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Fran. So it's a challenge, the engagement, because my particular group is very, very young. So all the kids are very, very young. They are 2, 3, 4, 5-year-olds. But I'm lucky that I know them very well. So I have known them since last year. So it's not a new connection that we are establishing. And I guess this helped me a lot to keep the engagement flowing. So we are having some conversations weekly through the internet, so video chats and so on, and the other things that we are doing. But the kids are participating, sometimes not. So each day is a day, and I have this connection to the group as well as to each individual. So this individual approach is very important to keep the flame alive and know what they're doing, know their interests, and share with them what I bring as references, as ideas for them to explore. And this exchange keeps the flame alive as well. So this is very important. I think that for so young kids, they are very engaged, specifically my group. But I know that here in Brazil, there are many different realities, and this engagement may vary according to possibilities to keep in touch with tutors and the school itself. So we have here in Santo Antonio a public Lumiar school as well, so the international school where I work as a tutor, and the other one where I help with the pedagogical support. And they had 2 weeks pause. So right after our government said, so now everybody, it's not possible to be in the school, present at school anymore. So it was March 23rd, this first day. And so after those 2 weeks of break, they had to build up this connection again. And now it's working really, really well with the kids. So that's the reality here in Santo Antonio do Pinhal.
That's really interesting, Lise. So what do you think has changed? You said now it's working really, really well. What are the things that you've kind of developed and tried, or maybe haven't worked so well, that now you've settled on? What is it that works particularly well? Because that's interesting.
Yeah, there are two different realities. So there's this school, private school, and the public school. So I can talk about both of them. First, the private school. At the private school, most of the families have internet, so they have access to internet, and that makes it easier as well to have those chats with the kids. So as I said, I know them. So in Lumiar, we worked based on interests. So I know what they're interested in. I know those kids, so I know how to talk to them. I've been their tutor already since last year. So it was a little bit easier for me to find some tools that could help me to keep this touch, to keep this contact alive. So first, I prepared a printed material that's a little bit, sounds simple, but it's not simple because I had to think and adapt the printed material to them, specifically to my group. So I had pictures of them printed and made some games with their favorite objects or some toys from home that I received. So I asked them, the parents, then to send me some pictures so I could build those games, printed games for them, but keeping the structure and the atmosphere of the school. So it was all about the school, all about our group. So it was not about ABC or 1, 2, 3, or the little cat goes to the little rat. So it was nothing like that. Sorry, someone was calling me here. So it was all prepared, really, really directed to my group. So I guess it helped a lot because they kept in touch with pictures of the friends and of themselves, and they could, it brings up a little bit of joy when you see yourself, like your picture and a picture of your toy there and the pictures of your friends and so on. So I guess as a start, it was very good because for smallest kids, I guess just entering this new world, this new digital world, I already thought it would not be so easy. So I prepared this material as a start for them to feel, so we cannot be together physically, but okay, I'm here with you through this printed material. We are all together through this printed material. Then I started to invite them to these video calls, and some of them didn't come, and some of them came already full on, and we started to build up our community, kids community, towards those video conferences as well. So it started to grow and grow and develop, but I had to call families and say, let's try to help them to be here. And then always bringing some joy and songs and games that they know that are related to them, things they know they like, things that were related to our project as well. So in Lumiar, we worked, it's project-based learning since education of the smallest kids. So we work with projects for small kids, like 2-year-olds do make projects based on their interests. And me as a tutor, I put it all together, counting the needs and the abilities to be developed. So we continued with that, bringing it to the video conferences. So always talking and playing about things which had relation to our projects. So it has been working very well. I made as well online books that they could try to interact with on their own. So these are books not with many things to read, so more audios and videos and images. So things they could deal with by themselves. So I tried to do it that way for it to be a little bit more interesting for them. In the case of the public school, on the other hand, many kids don't have access to internet. So at first, this idea of having this kind of contact, video calls and so on, was absolutely not possible. So during 2 weeks, the tutors were thinking, like digesting their ideas of how will I make this approach. And for them as well, it was possible only to make those kind of printed materials. But interesting that we could put Lumiar inside of all that. So that all makes sense. So it was never simple or random printed materials, but things that had connection with the project, things that had connection with the little things they were making daily with the tutor, and world readings as well. So it was really nice and to prepare this to them. So I was always checking with them how it was going, and I was helping them to build up a set of world readings which have relation with our environment, for example, here in Santo Antonio, like general things that we know all the kids are experiencing because we are in a rural area. And we are lucky to have here a lot of yards and backyards so that the kids can play. So it had to be adapted to this reality. So we are not in a big town and kids are not locked in an apartment. So this is not the problem here. And we try to bring up through these printed materials, the connection to the environment and the connection to each other and the connection to the tutors. And this started up as well, a connection with the families which are helping and giving support. So after those 2 weeks of pause at the public schools, they started printing and giving those materials every 15 days, so every 2 weeks. And the parents started to get in touch with the tutors through WhatsApp and giving feedbacks. So it was really good as well for the community as a whole, so that everybody started to participate a little bit more and share with the tutors. So now, after 1 month being like that, so it was like 2 months already, I guess. They started at the beginning of April, and now it's really thriving. So now it was so nice because most of the parents don't have internet, but most of them have cell phones, and little conversations were possible at the beginning. And now the tutor could arrange a conversation with some of her students, like most of them, and they built up a project together now, like totally in this distant way. So it was really, really nice. It was we see this as a good achievement for the group and for the tutor. So it's developing nicely, but we have lots of challenges. So not everyone takes part in it, and not everyone is really responding. So we have to go after families and children individually sometimes to know what's happening and try to help. So
amazing. Thank you so much. There's so much in what you said there that's so valuable and rich. And what I love is the way you talk about the identity of the group being the first thing that you addressed. So firstly, the identity of the children themselves, the group identity. I love them being able to see pictures of their own toys and their own faces and their group, and then that connection to you. Fascinating. And obviously the difference between the publics and the private schools is something that is, very, very topical, and something that's very important for us, to understand in our multiple contexts across the world. So I'm going to hand over to Manjari now. Good evening, Manjari, and thank you for taking time out of your evening. It's weird because Lisa's in the morning, I'm lunchtime, and Manjari's in the evening. So Manjari, I wondered if there's anything in what Lisa's saying that you recognise, or whether, interestingly, it's something different, because you're working with a different age group as well, not only a different country, context and culture. But if you could maybe talk us through, Manjari, how this time has been for you, and how have you particularly engaged your children at your school? Manjari, over to you.
Thank you, Fran. And lovely to hear your experience, Liz. There are many things that I identified with, particularly the divide between the private and public school, and the facilities available to parents in the private school versus those in the public schools. I don't really have a lot of insight into the government schools here, because all our schools are privately run, but I can still give you a sense of how a city school is facing slightly different challenges than we do have schools in smaller towns, almost rural areas, and they do present some interesting contrasts. But I want to start by educating all our viewers today about the situation in India. We went into nationwide lockdown end of March. It has been the strictest lockdown, I think, globally. So a lot of the facilities available in other countries, for example, going out and taking a printout, or in none of these are available, have been available to us. Unfortunately, our schools are in the worst affected state in the country. So the lockdown has been very, very strict here, that nothing is open in the city, in the state, except for essential services. So that actually presented a very unique challenge. We also thought about giving the printed materials to our younger kids, but we couldn't do any of that because none of the printers or stationery shops were open here. But coming to the middle years, I think that our effort has been twofold. On one hand, we have endeavored to maintain some semblance of normalcy in the child's experience. So whatever they were doing before, as far as possible, to continue their experience. So in a lot of our skill-based subjects like maths and English, we have a system that's based on personalization, very competency-based. And the effort there has been to continue each child's learning journey wherever they were before the lockdown, so that there is some sense of normalcy that they have. They know that this is what they will look forward to every day. But on the other hand, we've also tried to address the both the anxieties and the opportunity that this situation has presented to us. And I'll give you two examples of this. In slightly younger age groups, maybe 8 to 10-year-olds, we started a program called School Cinema, where the effort was to teach our children some crucial life skills through the medium of showing them short movies. But the idea really is that, they're at home all day, and everybody is at home all day, and it's a challenging situation because everything has to be done by that family unit. And it's challenging, but it's also an opportunity, right? You could learn how to help out in household chores. You could learn how to cook. For younger kids, this can mean how to learn non-fire cooking, for example. Also a great opportunity for them to develop empathy, right? Because they're seeing their parents and their grandparents and everybody else in the house for 24 hours every day. Great opportunity for them to understand what all the adults in the house have to do to ensure that the day-to-day life is not affected, right? And so we've encouraged them to become a part of those daily activities, and to build crucial empathy skills, which, otherwise in the normal course of things, that opportunity didn't present itself to us as much. So that's one thing that we've done with the slightly younger kids that come under my purview. For slightly older kids, 11 years to about 13 years, we actually we did something that Lumiar does a lot, which is to look at the interest of the children. And a lot of them had lots of questions about this disease, about this pandemic. This is right in the beginning of the lockdown. As soon as the country went into lockdown, we were given about, I think, 1 day notice going into lockdown, and obviously there was a lot of anxiety about it. This is the era of fake news. So they were just hearing lots of these different pieces of information coming at them from different sources. And we saw there an opportunity to actually educate them about the pandemic. And we ran a virtual course with our 11 to 13-year-olds, where we had them study diseases from a mathematical lens, from a biological lens, and from a historical lens. And that really helped them understand. We adopted Lumiar's project-based methodology to run that course. Really helped them understand what was going on in the world outside of them, but also what would happen inside their body if a pathogen attacks their body, right? And it really helped address a lot of the anxieties that they had, because all you hear in the news is so many people died and so many people are serious and there is a shortage of ICU beds, and there was just a lot of anxiety that they had about it. And addressing it head on was I think very, very relevant to their experience at that point. And so our effort has been to balance these two things, right? To balance out the things that they were learning anyway, to continue those as much as possible. On the other hand, to make use of this opportunity and to build crucial skills that have just presented themselves, have become relevant in this situation. And that's how we've been trying to engage children here.
Manjari, I love the idea, and we've spoken before about this project that's emerged through this experience. So the project that Manjari is discussing about COVID-19, the multidisciplinary aspects of looking at culture, biology, you know, really fascinating, and actually using that as a tool of empowerment for the children, I think has been amazing. And from our experience, maybe at Stowford, at Lumiar Stowford, ours is a small school in the UK, and it's based on a working farm. So obviously all of that has stopped. The outdoor experience has stopped. The practical working on the land with the animals has stopped. And so we've similarly had that challenge of how do we then replicate these things online, if you like. And I think one of the things for me that, Manjari, you kind of, that idea of the project that's emerged is we have, we'll speak about more about this when we address questions around parents, but we've been doing Friday feedback. As a board member, I've been leading that while our staff have been on furlough. But Friday feedback is where the children are learning, are sharing what they're learning. And I'll speak more about what it kind of looks like later in the live. But we've had children suggesting, really shaping that, coming to these feedback sessions saying, okay, I've done the group project on whatever it may be, but I've also done my own project. And my own project is on whatever it might be, and I can share more about that later. But really, they're driving it. So as Manjari said there, the project's become this tool of empowerment that the children at Lumiar Stowford are driving that, their personal interests. And one of Lumiar's modalities is the individual project, the individual research. So really where the children can take their interest and unpick that much more deeply. And we've seen that really naturally emerging during lockdown, because obviously they're at home and they've got much more time to go deeper into the things that interest them. And sometimes it's really surprising what they're interested in. But what I really love, this idea of it being empowering, is that the children are making suggestions. It's been coming from them. We'd really like to do something on this. I'd love to share this. So then Friday feedback has become also then this kind of space of sharing and collaboration where the children are showcasing. These are children, primary school children, and the sharing has been a kind of with the younger age groups from 5-6-year-olds are more of a kind of show and tell about their experiences. And then in the older age groups, 9, 10, 11, have been proper presentations, Google Slides, videos. Okay. So it really is the area where they can then show what they're doing. So Manjari, really, I empathise with that idea of it being, once we get out of the panic, it can become this tool of empowerment. Yeah. So really, I want to travel back to Lise, over to you, if that's okay. You mentioned WhatsApping the parents and calling them at some point. And so one thing that I wanted to now delve a little bit deeper into is, how have you been able to engage parents and families during this time? Because that's one of the crucial debates. So Lise, if you could talk a little bit about what you've been doing.
Yes, sure. For the younger kids, usually the families are already close to school because the kids are very young and they need naturally this support. So usually some of them are closer, some of them are not. But I, as a tutor, as an educator, always had this view for myself that once a kid gets in the school, a family gets in the school. It's never only the kid. It's always the family, because the kid is a reflection of that family and in a certain way, building up him or herself as well with other references, but for sure the family is always present in a way. So I always had this contact with the families. So I always talked to them, and when we were present. But now is a bigger challenge, because I guess it's much bigger than only Lumiar in Santo Antônio do Pinhal. It's a bigger thing. The way we see a school, the way we perceive what a school is. So what kind of place is this? How come the school now is a home and we are responsible for that? So it's not really like that. So I had to help them to understand. So I'm still the tutor. I'm still the one who has this pedagogical way to look at things, validate those abilities which are developed at home. And I guess the biggest challenge is to understand that school is life, life is school, school is another place where life thrives. So it's very important to understand that there's absolutely no difference. It just went a little bit deeper because we are in this lockdown, but still, what happens? What is the content of work at school, or of developing at school, is based on what happens in life. So their interests and what they do at home. So yes, it's important. I guess it's very important to talk to parents. So I talked to them through the phone calls, and we had as well a video conference, like a circle only with the parents from infantile, from the smallest kids, the younger kids. And I tried to help them to understand what they can do. How can they provide a healthy environment for themselves and for the kids to develop, how they can use everything that I am developing as well and providing as well. In the video conferences, they are always there. They are sometimes not so close and not taking part in the conversation, but they're always there. And I try as well to bring up this lightness. If they are there, they can play with us. They can take part in everything that we do, because now they are there close to the kids. So I try to help them to open up, to be part of the school a little bit more, a little bit deeper, learn as well, and be light as well, and have fun with the games, and try to look at the kid as is developing at home. And if they are a little bit anxious and nervous, I try to listen and see how I can help. So sometimes they call me, so I make myself available through my phone and my email so that they can always contact me. And if I can help them and listen, it's a lot about listening, because each family has a different background and is dealing with this in a different way. Some of them are still working, some of them are not, some of them have internet, some of them don't. So how do we manage to keep something unified so everybody is a group, but taking care of the individuals as well, the families as well? So I have been having a lot of good experiences. So parents are engaged. Some of them are not, but still not appearing in video conferences, but we still keep in touch, and I still know a little bit what's happening at home. So there are different cases. I just try to be there for them and listen, and try to bring this idea that school happens at home as well. So life is the base of school. Everything we do is full of knowledge. Everything we do is a potential. So everything the kids are doing at home, if they are helping with home chores, if they are playing, everything is very important for me to know. So at the same time, it's funny because at the same time, I am as an educator inside home with them as well a little bit. So it has been great. I guess it's a big challenge for education as a whole, in the whole world, to understand that school is not separated from the rest of the world. Like, school is not only a building where people go inside a room and sit on this kind of chair. School is thinking. School is developing tools to think, to bring up hypotheses, to try to experiment, and kids do this all the time at home. So I just have to help parents to see and validate this, and try to validate themselves as well, their feelings and their limits, everything. So I guess it's a very potent and a very vibrant moment as well in this sense. So I know it's difficult, but I guess we are being partners in a deeper and more sensitive way. And I guess it's really beautiful to see this happening. I guess this is like a little seed we are planting that will change school for the future in a very deep way if we let it happen. So we can just say no, let's stop it now, or we can let it happen. Lumiar was always open for this. Sure, we have a methodology which is flexible and opens up for the participation of everyone. We have parents always talking, and we have circle time with parents and everything. but now it's deeper, and it's nice that it's possible to do it.
Lise, thank you. I love that idea that school is life and life is school. And it really makes me feel that I think when we all started this journey, everybody was looking to everybody else. What are all the schools doing? And what it seems to me is emerging is that some schools are falling into their pattern, if you like. So traditional schools are delivering quite a traditional distance learning program. And I think for progressive and innovative schools, like we are in this conversation, sometimes the path is harder because you have to go to yourself and say, what do I feel is the right thing to do here? And that might be very different from what other schools are doing. So in the UK, for example, you know, there are some schools that are doing hours of laptop work. You know, children should be sitting at their laptop for hours doing this, doing that. And whether they're primary or secondary or older ones, it might be they have different teachers, or they might have a few teachers, but they're expected to be at a screen doing quote unquote work for much of the day. And I love what you said, Lise, that actually life is school and school is life. And this opportunity we have is that parents can see that learning takes place at other times. So it doesn't have to be a worksheet or doing things on the laptop. It can be exploring, in my own experience as a parent, exploring little dead things that are left outside our house by the local cat, you know, that killed a little mouse, became a project for my 6-year-old. You know, she was really interested in finding something, looking at how it's decaying, looking at the anatomy of this particular, it's like a little mouse thing. So actually that is learning. And I love that idea that we have to have the confidence within us to share that with the parents and give them the confidence to say, follow what your child is wanting to do. It's not just a laptop for hours and hours. It's in these other experiences as well. And we're involved with Lumiar as part of a collective of progressive schools called LEAPS. And I know that in Doha, one of their schools, Academiate, their innovative primary school, they've been, for example, sending out boxes of cooking materials. I know, Manjari, we've talked that it's not possible for your rules for lockdown, but it was possible that they could send out a package. So, you know, the children open the package up, what's in there? And then they did like a Zoom cooking online with their tutor. But all these kind of moments that learning in lockdown is not just replicating school with worksheets. It should be more than that. So embracing that opportunity, I love. Manjari, I'm going to go over to you and ask you about how you've engaged with parents, because obviously as children get older, I'm wondering whether that's a different scenario from when they're much younger. So over to you, Manjari.
Thanks, Fran. I completely agree with Liz that there is sort of unprecedented access that parents have to the transaction between the teacher and the child, and you can be scared of it, or you can actually sort of look at it as an opportunity. And this is what we've done in our school. It's enabled us to really bring the parent in the child's learning experience. With older children, parents don't tend to sit. So we do have some hours of synchronous classes. Parents don't feel the need to sit there with the child in the synchronous class, but you know, they're in the same house, they're listening to what's happening. And there's a lot of sort of interesting exploratory assignments, for lack of a better word, that the child is doing every day, the asynchronous part of any project, and they're looking at that, and they're able to sort of connect the synchronous to the asynchronous. So this has actually been such a great opportunity for us to show to parents what the power of a project-based methodology is. At the end of every module or project that we've ran in the last 2 months, we've actually had sort of a culmination ceremony where we've gotten all the parents together on a Zoom call. You know, we've done sort of like felicitation of all the students who've done the project, and then we've asked parents to share what they felt, and we've got such amazing response from the parents. They've actually, none of them really spoke about the content that their children learned, right? So none of them really said that, oh, my child knows so much more about mathematics, or my child knows so much more about biology. What they actually spoke about is that, oh, my child is now learning how to think. You've taught my child how to separate real news from fake news. Or I have seen the debates and discussions that have happened in the live sessions, and and I've been astounded by my child's ability to debate and convince another classmate about his or her point of view. And this is exactly the aim of doing a project based methodology, right? That you want these sort of foundational critical thinking skills to be developed. And in another situation, it may have been much more difficult for us to show this to parents, but in this situation it's been far more easier. We've also very consciously we've created opportunities to get the parents together. I think Liz mentioned circle time with the parents. For the middle school, slightly older children, we've done parent teacher sort of get-togethers on Zoom. We've done we've actually asked for their feedback very, very frequently, almost sort of every 2 weeks, because because this is a new way of learning. We wanted to check with them, is it working with them, is it logistically also, is it working with their schedules, etc. What would they like to happen in their child's day? Can we help them with something else? Some of the parents came back to us through one of those feedback opportunities, and told us, can you help us make a sort of rhythm of the day for our children, right? Because yes, they have about 2 hours of let's say live synchronous class in the morning, but there is the entire the entire day left, and they're not even allowed to go down and play. So can you help us be a better parent, for example? And that was lovely to do, right? To collaborate with parents and help them in their parenting challenges. So it's been a fantastic experience working with parents in this period. We've also been able to recognize certain parents who've gone beyond what is expected generally of parents, who've been very, very invested in their child's learning. We've had an opportunity to sort of appreciate them and appreciate them in front of the larger parent community, hold them up as exemplars of what can happen for your child if the teacher and the parent collaborate so well. So it's been a very good experience working with parents during this pandemic.
Amazing. Thank you, Manjari. We've got a question that's come in from Fabia. And this was something, this is such a great question because I had it tagged on at the end of one of mine, and Fabia's thought about this already. So I'll share it with you. It was broadly about what are the things that you've learned so far that you're going to take back to the classroom once maybe we settle back into a new normal that we know is probably not going to look as it was for a long time. But what are the practices or the things that you've learned that you might take back into your experience? So Lise, over to you first of all. What are the gems of knowledge that you wish you'd known, we were talking about, that you wish you'd known at the beginning, and what might you take back with you, Lise?
Everything. So I'm really excited to see everything that we produced right now. I'm sure I'll bring that back to school for the kids to revisit it. So everything we did, so the little books, the games, the videos they are making and teaching each other things. So revisit that back at school. So I'm very excited to see how they feel and how they react to that. So this is the first thing. For myself, I just improved my skills here with the computer. So there were a lot of things that I didn't know that I started to, but it was not that I am not open to learn. I'm sure I'm open to learn. So I'm not the more technological person of the world, but I'm okay. And it got a little bit more profound. So I had to do this every day. So I learned a little bit more. So it was just by the pressure. It just went faster. Something that I guess I would maybe try to do in the future, or I don't know, create a book on the internet or things like that. But I'm excited as well to see, Manjari said, talked about the appreciation of the parents about the kid, and so that the parents know a little bit more. One thing that I heard from a parent, and I think it's just so beautiful, and that's something that touches me and that I want to keep feeding it so that it grows and grows, is that the parents told me that, oh, that's so cool, because now I know better how my kid learns. So the process that my kid, not everyone, but my kid, how he learns. And that's so beautiful. I guess that's the gem so it's not really nothing technological, but this is something that I think is one of the most beautiful things that I want to keep letting it grow and feeding it for it to grow and thrive again and again, because it's really nice. It was a really nice opportunity for everyone to understand a little bit about their own kids and how the process of learning goes and how exciting it is, and learning together. And some parents brought, so, oh, I didn't know that. So, yeah, I guess this appreciation is very important. And bring up everything we produce right now and revisit it. I guess it will be very exciting, and I don't know what's going to come out of this. So I'm excited to see it.
Amazing. Thank you, Liz. And Manjari, what are the things that you may take back into the classroom? What practices, and how will this shape what you do going forward? Sorry, Manjari.
Yeah, I think everything, yes, as Liz said, but we're focusing on two things. I think the first one is just my expectations from what children can do have just gone up so much. I mean, I would think that I anyway had high expectations of them, but they have just amazed me with the way that they have adapted to the situation, but also just how positive they've been and how creative they've been. In our course, for example, we had a few sessions on mathematical modeling, which you'd probably learn at university level. And when we were planning that session, me and my co-instructors were sort of discussing whether we should do this with 12-year-olds. But not only did they learn mathematical modeling, one of them actually coded a simulation of how an infectious disease spreads, all on his own. Nothing that any of us did. And that's just one example, but they've just sort of amazed me over and over again. And I want to take that back with me, and I want to share it with my entire group of teachers, that whatever you were expecting from your children, just double it. Just have high expectations of them, because they can do that and they can do more. And I think the other thing that I would want to take back to the class is that I think that education had already changed anyway. I mean, with the advent of the internet and Google, all content is already there. Maybe we were sort of pretending that as teachers we still have to deliver content. It was. I mean, even though we tried to run the flipped classroom model a lot of times in our school. For example, you did have sort of parents come back and say, oh, you should be teaching stuff in the class, right? But this pandemic has given us the opportunity to implement flipped classrooms at a much larger level. We now have very strong parent and teacher buy-in for this. So that's one thing that we would want to continue even when the physical schools open up, that learning doesn't happen when you just receive the content. Learning happens when you work with the content, and that can and should happen asynchronously, because every child's pace of engaging with that information and that content is going to be different. The style of engaging with that information is going to be different. So to allow the child to work with the information, with the content is what I'd like to take back, even when physical schools open up.
Amazing. Thank you, Manjari. Well, I'm aware of the time, so we're going to have one more question for each of us. And this is maybe kind of 2 or 3 minutes from each of us on what a week looks like in lockdown. So what is it, you know, Monday to Friday, or picking a kind of typical, if there could be typical in lockdown, a day or two, and what that looks like. Lisa, I'm going to come to you first. One of the things that you mentioned earlier on that I really wanted to unpick, if we can, briefly, is you mentioned read the world, and that is something as a kind of one of the pillars or the really important parts of the Lumiar methodology that might not be familiar to a lot of our viewers. That maybe how does that look in your week, as well as kind of a brief overview. So, Lisa, what does your week look like with your children?
I guess the only thing which is scheduled is this meeting every Friday at 11 a.m. And there's another one which is you can go if you want, and I'm here if you want to talk. So this one is Wednesday, 11 p.m. And these are the only two very fixed things. The other things, they're really free. So I send some materials and I talk to the parents, maybe Mondays or sometimes Thursdays, I send something. And there's this little book that the parents can access when they want, help the kids to access, so the kids can choose what they are gonna do. There's this material, this printed material that I send at the beginning. I send at the beginning a big sheet of paper for parents and kids to make a routine together, considering the things that they do every day, like having breakfast or lunch, like a little bit fixed little times, and the rest they could build up with the kids so that everyone would have an individual time, so a time to breathe for themselves. And well, they could arrange this the way they wanted, the way that suited the family better. So, but me as an educator, so I don't expect to send the kids and for them to do something on Monday and then another thing on Tuesday and then another thing on Wednesday, nothing like that. So I send this little book with some activities. Usually Fridays we have a master with us. So talking a little bit about Lumiar, about reading the world. So it's really important for us that the kids have access to actually what's happening. So even with the smallest kids, we talk about, so before we left school in the present way, we talked about COVID and we talked about what is a virus, and it's really funny, in a really funny storytelling way. So for them they had a lot of questions already. So this is a kind of world reading because it was happening and it was really sustaining. So why do we have to go? Why do we have to stay at home? So we had to help them to understand what was happening. So this is world reading, what's happening to the world and what's interesting, what is affecting our life. And in the case of the youngest kids, they always bring up questions. So it's really easy for me. It's a walk in the park to bring up world readings because they ask me all the time about things that are really happening and they're really impacting them. And it comes to, for example, here, the weather is really changing and this is important for them. Why it's colder now? What's happening? And, you know, so we have a particular tree here, for example, and it's within the name of the town, Santo Antônio do Pinhal. So it's like a pine tree and we eat the seeds, and it's a really important time of the year where we have those seeds to eat, the pinhão. It's part of the culture. So this is a world reading as well, talking about this plant and what does it represent for us. So the questions come from them. And about the routine, that's it. And sometimes, yes, masters. No? So Fridays, we have some activities with masters because in Lumiar, we value diversity a lot. So me and the family, we're not the only adults in the kids' lives. So we think that be passionate about learning. This is the central thing, to be passionate, to learn that learning, that knowledge is something so cool and so nice. And learning is so exciting. So this is what we want the kids to learn, basically, exactly because of that Manjari said. So information is all around. So how do I deal with that? How do I have pleasure learning? So this is a very important thing. And with the masters, so we have projects, and sometimes then Fridays, the masters, so different people from different backgrounds with different passions, which are different references for the kids. They come and make games, something that has to do with their expertise, something the kids want, something that they know. And this happens actually usually on Fridays. So they see those masters and they play together, we play together, and that's it. So that's how our routine schedule looks like right now, like really flowing and really light, but full of interesting things and contents and exchange of videos. And I have as well like a Google Photos album, and the kids send me pictures and I put there so that they can see during the week what they want. They can see the friends, and it's really, really amazing as well.
Lise, thank you. And I recognise so many things that you're saying in terms of kind of how the Stoford routine has developed over time. So I think, you know, to begin with, that there was a lot of emphasis on daily connection and daily activity. So there was like a daily challenge using Class Dojo, that's like an app that you can do on your phone. And for some people that was great because they needed some kind of sense still of purpose, like a daily activity or a connection. And that was like for the first 2 weeks. And then we had a break here, I think, for Easter in the UK. And so then the education team sat down and thought, okay, now we get the census is going to go on for a while. How are we going to now rebuild what we're doing? So the board phoned all of the parents and said, how are you getting on? What is it that you need? And it was really interesting. A lot of them said, we don't want so much. We do want connection, but we don't want to feel like we've got all these activities all the time. So as Lise was saying, more of a kind of flexible routine. So what we've developed since for the last 6 weeks, which has been really good, has been like this framework where parents and families and children have had multiple access points. So it hasn't been like a set weekly that you must do everything. But if you're a family that wants more structure, then there's daily maths and literacy independent activities you can do online that are all differentiated. And those can be daily. And then there's a start the week, Monday, which is just a brief check-in with everybody. Here's the group project that we're doing. It's in your Google Classroom. Have a look at that. And just kind of a connection just to start. Monday is often a hard day for families. I think they feel like, oh God, here we go again. So just to connect quickly with the children on a Monday. Then a Friday, we do Friday feedback. So the project lasts for 2 weeks, the group project. So every Friday at the midpoint, we do a check-in, like how are you getting on? What have you done so far? And the final Friday, then they share what they've done either verbally or on screen with a screen share or something. And this is where I was saying that the children have started to share their own projects as well. So we've had some brilliant ones that the children have done. One boy who's about 7 did a whole project on submarines. So he did a proper PowerPoint presentation, really detailed. And like Manjari was saying about raising expectations, it was phenomenal. And he's 7. And then another boy said just on the Friday, oh, I've just done a project on Abraham Lincoln. Can I share that? And I was like, great. So he did this whole PowerPoint thing. And then there was a quiz at the end of it for the rest of the children to take part in. And we've had a presentation on banana slug, which is a particular type of slug in California. I now know that a yellow would look like a banana. And this was really detailed, like biological, cultural look at them. So really the Friday feedback, the children have shaped them to become what they want, which is brilliant. And then in the middle on a Wednesday that's optional again, and that's masters discussion. So one of our board directors, her specialist kind of area is sustainability, environmental education. So she's put together this program of masters each week. So a master joins us to talk about their area or their area of knowledge. And again, it's optional. So the parents can dip in and out. If they're working full time and trying to do home educating, they don't have to do all of the elements. But if they're a family that do need more structure, they've got these multiple access points. So I think for us, that's kind of what the week has emerged looking like. It's become less about these kind of rigorous parts and really us thinking, going back full circle to the beginning of our conversation, about identity that Lise was saying, that's the fundamental thing, is the group, the identity, that actually what do they need? They need connection. They need a sense of a flow in the week to hold them, so a structure, but freedom within that. So that's really kind of emerged as our pattern at the moment. So as the final last few minutes, Manjari, I'm going to hand back over to you. If you wouldn't mind just walking us through briefly, what does your week look like in India as our kind of closing thoughts?
Yes, sure. I'll make it quick. So we have, for the middle schoolers, we have about maybe 2 hours of live connection with the tutors. But that's split into 2 things. One of them is a subject that they're studying for the entire week. So so that could be physics, or it could be biology, or it could be English, or whatever. And the other one is one of many sort of clubs that we're running for them. So there's a journalism club, there is a filmmaking club, there is all the other sort of examples that I gave earlier. And so students choose which project they want to take up. Usually goes on for a few weeks. So those two, one subject that they're sort of focusing on for that week, plus one sort of club that they've committed to. That's what the live interaction with the teacher constitutes, and that's about 2 hours every day. Maybe some days of the week it can be 3 hours. That's Monday to Friday. And the rest of the day is just them working on, working asynchronously, doing their own study. The teachers have been very, very kind about making themselves available for the whole day. So students do reach out to teachers. WhatsApp is a very, very big medium of communication in India as well, like in Brazil. So all teachers are connected to their students through WhatsApp. So the child, if they're stuck anywhere, or if they just want to sort of discuss something, then they do reach out to teachers as and when required. And other than that, once a week, we also have sort of the class teacher, just doing sort of a catch-up session with her class, just, checking in on everybody, how are they doing with the situation emotionally, otherwise. So that's what a typical week looks like here.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Manjari. So literally a last quick thing, any final tips that you might have for educators? Just a really quick one. Lise, over to you, and then I'm going to hand back to Victor in a minute to say goodbye. So quick tips for educators.
Yeah, thank you so much, Fran. So everyone who's listening, I know we were talking about really inspiring things and things that we tried to use that worked in our context, but we know that it's difficult, and we know that many people don't understand, many families are not engaged, many students are not engaged. I know we as educators have a lot of challenges. So try to reach out to other educators, try to talk. I guess this community of everyone who is engaged in education and thinking about education is really boiling right now. So try to connect to others, try to listen to other stories, try to share your anxiety or anything that is not working for you, try to look for help. And I guess the most important tip that I can give to everyone is context. Always try to work with context. If you bring up a context that makes sense for your students, everything will flow a little bit easier. Just try it. And context is really important. It doesn't work if you bring something that has nothing to do and makes no sense for your kids. So look for help, talk to other educators, and bring up context in your group. That's it.
Thank you, Lise. Any last final tips, Manjari, that you might have for any other educators out there?
From my experience, one tip that I'd like to share with everybody is that you teaching something is not equal to the child learning. Those are two different things, and so your endeavor all the time should be to identify how all the children in your class, how are they learning, what is their context, like Liz said, what is their previous knowledge about something, what is their current proficiency in something, and making a lesson plan and delivering it very well is something that you've done, but whether the child has learned from it is another thing altogether. So always sort of keep that in mind. How can you enable the child to learn, because it's really something that the child has to do, the learner has to do it. You can't do it for him. You can create the right environment, and you can be the motivating force, but really it is the student who has to learn. So keep an eye out for that all the time.
Brilliant. Thank you so much to my beautiful guests from India, Manjari Sheel, from Brazil, Lise Matheus. Thank you so much. And I'm going to hand back over to the curator of this series of Lumiar online seminars. Goodbye from us, and thank you to Vitor, and over to you, Vitor.
Thanks, Fran. On behalf of Lumiar Education, I'd like to thank you all for sharing all this information. It's really beautiful to see that to face this disease that actually separates us, people are getting closer, and it's really, really beautiful. I think all the practices we are sharing can make people grow their own experiences and to develop their teaching skills and to engage their students. So it was really good to listen from you. I'd like to thank everybody to watching to us. This seminar series is happening all during the quarantine, always on Thursdays, and just connect to our social media. We are announcing things there. We're having actually some lives on Instagram too. They are more quick lives, but then we are inviting people to share some drops of information there. And that's it. Thanks for all. And
Thank
bye-bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Fran. Thank you,
Zor.
Manjari.
Thank you,
It was
Fran.
lovely.
Yeah, it was really nice.